Hello, I am starting my own YouTube channel. I want to talk about a few different things like diet and different things that I'm up to as an artist as well. As most people who know me have realized that I've been through something really crazy the last few, or pretty much since probably February this year. I was really, really unwell. I have an autoimmune disease which had intensely affected my system. A lot of people have written to me asking me what happened and why I lost so much weight and why I got so sick. So I'm just going to explain my story I so everyone can understand what was happening. Um, Through having an autoimmune disease, the last 5 years especially, I have tried many different diets and I've worked through many different experiences regarding my health. And probably out of the last 5 years, about 3 years of that time I spent quite unwell. But I've just managed to be on top of everything in some way, shape, or form, or just hide away from everybody, and everybody would kind of notice that I went off the radar. So this time was different because I got so much inflammation from my system, from the autoimmune response in my body, that my CRP rate on my blood test was 148 when a normal person should be under 5. So the doctors told me that I was, near death. I was very, very close to dying, and they said my body was in some serious trouble. Leading up to going to hospital, I started to get sicker and sicker, and I stopped being able to eat anything at all because it just made me so unwell. And I was in a lot of pain. I was internally bleeding, and I had lots of different things that I had to work through in the sense of mentally, emotionally, physically, etc. When I went to hospital, they told me that I would have to have my colon removed. And I said, no, I'm not getting my colon removed. I chose to have steroids because that was pretty much my only choice at that time. I'm very, as most people that know me, I'm very alternative. I have in my life been completely raw, had many different natural diets. I'm not really into like Western medicine as such, but it was time to surrender because I was in some serious trouble. What I did do was, for the time that I was in hospital, when they told me that I would die and that steroids might not even work for my system, I chose to meditate. I meditated to sort of the Tibetan bowls and everything, the sounds, for long periods of time while I was in hospital with my headphones on. I focused intently on what outcome I wanted for my body. I didn't get caught up in the sort of negative belief systems of, oh my God, why is this happening to me? I was like, okay, this is happening to me. I have to accept it. So now it's time to just get into focus mode. So I completely, in my meditations, focused on what numbers I wanted my CRP rate to go down to. And the first night that I did meditation, my CRP rate went from 148 to 90. That's huge. The doctors were like, what the hell, we haven't seen something jump this fast and this quickly ever, like in their experience. So they were like, what are you doing? And I obviously was meditating and I was taking supplements, but meditation, I feel like, was the main key to healing myself. The next night I imagined my numbers going down from 90 to 60, in the 60 range, and that's exactly the next morning I had my blood test, and that afternoon I found out it was down to 60. Pretty much it followed on from that period onwards. I was doing meditation every night, and whenever I could do it in between nurses and coming and seeing me. I mean, I was a very, very sick girl. I got to a point where my CRP rate was around 20 and it was going like lower, and the doctors said, and I was really keen to get out of hospital because for me the hospital wasn't necessarily, I mean, it was a healing environment to a certain degree in the sense of getting my CRP rate down and my inflammation down, but I had a long journey to go from that point on still, and I knew that, and a normal dietitian or something linked within the mainstream kind of medical system couldn't necessarily help me with the way that I wanted to go about things, and they weren't necessarily going to understand my alternative ways. Since then, for that next 2 months, I was incredibly sick. 3 days after hospital, I realized how much weight I'd actually lost. I was gone. I normally weigh 60 kilos, and I was down to, well, firstly, I was down to 45 kilos. So I was like, oh my God, I've lost 15 kilos. And you couldn't tell because I was hooked up to so many machines and under the robe and had the fluid being pumped into my system. You couldn't actually tell that I was that skinny. So after 3 days of not having fluid pumped into my system, um, I basically, yeah, I was so bony. And then from then on, because my body just couldn't seem to take any kind of food and water wouldn't stay down even, I lost an extra. It was, yeah, I went down to 39 kilos at probably around my lowest, 38 kilos. I was literally skin and bone. I was like Skeletor completely. And that I was panicking. I will be honest, I was really panicking. I could see the fear in my parents' eyes. I could see the fear in my sisters, and I didn't want to go back to hospital. But at the end of the day, if I didn't sort out some problem, I would definitely have to go back. So I prayed. I was like, please, to the universe, please give me something, a diet that will help me move from this stage, even if it's just a little bit of improvement, just something, because I hadn't seen improvement for such a long time, other than obviously when I went to the hospital, my inflammation had gone down, but I hadn't actually seen improvement in the way that my body had completely started to shut down. So through that prayer, I looked on YouTube and I typed in, autoimmune disease cures, and with that came a really normal video, like, on the top, and I just got this sort of instinct to look at that one, and there was heaps that came up, and it was of this guy talking about this book that he found that completely changed his wife's life, that, she had an autoimmune disease and it changed everything. So it's called, specific carbohydrate diet. That's the diet that was found, and it was by Elaine Gottschall, and she did studies from like the 50s, basically. She had a daughter who had autoimmune disease, and she was very, very, very unwell, and went to many different hospitals, and they basically said that she was incurable and that she would have to have her colon removed. So she then worked out, I think she already had background in science and so forth, and she worked out that a lot of people with ulcerative colitis or any autoimmune response in their body tend to have a sensitivity to sugars or carbohydrates. So from that day, I followed the diet that was on the website as well as in the book. And from that day forward, even though it was like tiny, it was instant, but it was tiny. There were just, I was going from one day not even being able to move because I was so motion sickness and so sick and losing weight. So the next day, just even being able to stand, sitting, and not, vomiting or not being sick. So it was amazing, the difference in just even how sick I was, even just from one day to the next. So from that period on, I followed that diet strictly, and I still am on that diet. And I did every day kind of follow through exactly what she said, which was quite interesting. It was different to what I'd done before. I mean, I was a vegetarian and I was completely raw like only 2 years ago, and this diet was different. It was like eating, grass-fed organic meat, and it was more similar to paleo, but still some restrictions compared to paleo. And basically it's based on the concept of single molecule foods. So everything that is single molecule is fine for people with autoimmune responses because their bodies can break it down really easily and it converts into energy and nutrients. But when it's any chain molecule or double molecule foods, the body can't actually break it down, which causes this really negative autoimmune response in the body. From that period on, I got to a point where I started to put on a little bit of weight. I was very excited. Even just putting on half a kilo was just one of the most exciting things, because when you're that skinny and you can't sit down because you're too bony and you have no meat on your bum, you've got nothing on you, any kind of improvement after being sick for several months and, being told that you're close to death and your body shutting down is just like heaven. You just feel so happy, and you start to feel like things are possible again. I then started to work intensely with my belief systems, because while I'm a really positive and I've been very spiritually aware for a long time and really connected, there's obviously in my something in my cellular memory which created this illness and which was a part of this process of me being really unwell. So I spent every day, I couldn't really make it down the stairs because I was too weak. Had no muscle tone on my legs or on my body. My thighs were like, very, very small. So it was very hard to do normal things or even try and do things. So it was a big accomplishment when I could even walk, up the stairs once in a day. That was a big thing for me. I would have a bath with Epsom salts and I would do an hour of affirmations and meditations. So every day I would talk to myself and talk to my cells and talk to my body and remind myself of how strong I am and talk about how amazing my body is. And I would speak out loud and say really positive, affirming things that would say, I am strong, I am fit, I am healthy, I am in perfect health, I am in perfect health, I am in perfect health. And I kept saying this over and over again. So through this experience, I really noticed really fast results. Even obviously this was another stage to the healing compared to the hospital doing the meditations and focusing on what my CRP rate was, but it just shows you how powerful the mind is and how powerful when you make the choice in yourself and you really have nothing to lose, and you believe it. Like, even if you don't see any results straight away, if you truly give it a go and there's nothing to lose, just give it 100%, even if you don't see results for a while. You keep believing and stay high in vibration and believe, then you can actually work through this. And I think that's my biggest advice for people who have suffered from some form of chronic illness is don't give up hope, completely stay true to yourself. Be honest with yourself. Like, I'm not saying be positive and pretend that nothing's going on in your life. Like, we are human and we're going to feel sad sometimes. Release it. Be honest with yourself. But I would say the most important thing is that while you release it, know that it's going to be better. It's going to get better. It is going to get better. So as time went on, basically to continue the story, I continued to heal myself and continued to get better, and little progress, lots of little progresses, a lot of little achievements, and I was really celebrative, like, of my achievements. I was so excited whenever I could do something as simple as getting up without having to use somebody else to help me up. There were simple things, and while somebody could find it so easy to go down and open the fridge and just eat something and just walk around and go outside, those things were so mentally hard for me. Even having a shower was so mentally hard. Brushing my teeth the energy was so low in my system that it took me so long to work up the energy just to brush my teeth, and my mum or my family would have to do it for me when I was really unwell. So what I'm going to say is that it's a combination of diet, but it's certainly the mind and the self and the cellular memory and talking to the master cell to help reconnect all the cells with new information rather than working from an old pattern. And your old pattern was maybe some form of belief system that maybe you attracted in your life when you were a child and you don't even realize it exists, but it's manifested in a physical form as a disease. It's disease, it's uneasement with the body. So throughout this process, it's been since pretty much March I got out of hospital. It's now October, and here I am. I've got no makeup on. I look really, really healthy. I eat really, really well. I'm still going through some things in my body, but I've certainly come so far. Like, for what I have been through, I've come so far, and I continue to. The last 3 or 4 months I've been painting. It started off kind of slow because I had to manage my energy, but it's starting to build up and I'm getting a lot more energy now, and I'm able to talk to people every day and do things I couldn't do. So I'm very, very happy about that. The book that I recommended earlier was called Specific Carbohydrate Diet by Elaine Gottschall. You can also look her up on the website. But I just wanted to share that for anyone, or if you know someone who's going through a chronic illness of some kind, whether it be cancer or autoimmune disease or anything that has affected them in an intense way for a long period of time, and their spirits are starting to get low, I would say that book is really incredible. But there is also another book that is probably more relative to people with cancer and so forth, and it's called Love Medicine and Miracles by Bernie Siegel. And he was a doctor, and he talks a lot about the mind and the belief systems, and it's just so uplifting. I was reading it a lot when I was really unwell, and I'd read a page every day, and it just helped me get through the really hard times. So yeah, so this is my first video for my YouTube video about my YouTube channel for my health, and I hope that it helps me the way the video that I found on YouTube helped me. And I appreciate so much support from all the people that have supported me on Facebook and Instagram, and HL Movement, which was on Instagram. They posted my story up with, in America, I had 37,000 followers. They do. So through all those people that I communicated with and I shared my journey with while I was really sick, those people were what really helped me heal, along with obviously my family, my immediate family, and my close friends and stuff. So thank you so much, everyone who's been a part of that healing process. And yeah, big love. Mwah.